I always told everyone I was going to play football and not be a race car driver. Lo and behold, I'm not. I mean, I was good at football, but I'm not the size for it. I was more the size for to be a race car driver. And so at 7 years old or 8 years old, my dad put me in a quarter midget again because the first time didn't work, and I loved it.
Green flag in the air.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Hot Lapping with Landman show coming off the 4th of July break. I want to share just a little story with you folks before we get into this week's podcast. When I first started and came up with the idea to do a podcast in the Hot Lapping with Landman show, my idea was to not just explore the sprint car drivers and their backgrounds, their personalities, along with the crew chiefs and the car owners and officials from the sprint car ranks. I also intended to get into the late model side of it, the super late model side of it, because there's such a growing interest in that also. Naturally, I come from a sprint car background. I've been around the sport for 35 years, and I know a lot of people in that industry. When it came to the late model side, I know of just a very few people, but I had some connections. I had a couple of guys lined up in the past, and they got very, very busy, which I understand, and they weren't able to fulfill their commitments. So I had some sprint car people I could fall back on. I'm really excited to announce that Bobby Pierce is going to be on the show this week, and we have Donny Schatz sitting in as a co-host too. We're going to get some really great comparisons from the super late model side versus the sprint car side, and Donny's dabbled in late models just a little bit too, so he has just a little bit of input in there, not the expertise that Bobby obviously has, but they have some great conversations back and forth during the duration of the show. We shot the show before the 4th of July. It was the Thursday of Deer Creek for Bobby. Night one over there. They had just gotten to the racetrack. I happened to be in Fargo and was up at Donnie's house. So I was actually at his house while he was there also. So the three of us did the show from there. Obviously, different background you'll see once we get into the show because I'm back at the home studio now. But just so everybody understands, that's how it went down. Really excited to get into this show. It's some really good stuff. Just a little bit of business to take care also before we get started, though. If you like what I've been putting out, and I'm really hoping you're going to like the late model stuff because there's some really cool stuff that goes on over there, too. I'm excited to get into that side of it a little bit, too. If you like what I've been doing, the best way you can support me is to like my stuff and to share my stuff. Subscribe, tell your friends about me. I enjoy doing this, but more than that, I enjoy getting the information to you folks. You guys have been so awesome about following me and supporting me. The more we can get, the more I can get out to you folks too. So let's not mess around here any longer. Let's get those two guys into the studio and talk to Bobby Pierce. Hey everyone, welcome back to Hot Lapping with Landman. And this week we've got a really special guest, something different for us. We're diving into the late model world a little bit, and this is a first for us. I've been wanting to do that for a long time. Had a couple other guys cancel, but Bobby Pierce was nice enough to not only accept an invite to the show, but he actually showed up. So Bobby, great to have you on today. I know you're over at the Deer Creek Speedway getting a race tonight, but talk a little bit about what you guys got going on over here the last couple days.
Yeah, well, first off, hopefully I'm Donnie's favorite late model driver over Gordy since I decided to show up. I'm not sure if you've invited Gordy or not, but
let's ask Don that. Don, we need to get an answer on that.
Man, you guys are putting me in a bad spot here, Yeah, if we put apples to apples on who's a better driver there at the moment, I think it's pretty simple, Bobby. You got a hell of a lot more trophies. I love Gordy to death. Don't get me wrong, but you got to put shoes on babies now. So
right.
That car's got to finish. That car's got to finish in the money.
For sure.
So speaking of that real quick, Bobby, I know you've had your girlfriend Abby for a long time, but if we are correct now, she is now your fiance, right? You guys got some plans in the works?
Yeah. We got engaged last October, and we actually don't get married till next year sometimes. So pretty long engagement, but that's what happens when you race all the time. You don't really know what dates are going to be available, so you kind of got to pick and choose from what you get. And yeah, so we've been together for a little over 5 years now. So it's nice. And yeah, she's here with me this weekend at Deer Creek. So
And that's cool. And I think probably one of the greatest dates you two probably ever had was at the last year at the World 100. I think did she meet you up front on the front stretch?
No, is that where we met?
No, no,
Is that what you're
no.
asking?
But you guys
No,
just had a
no.
date. I would just let everybody know
Yes,
she's the trophy queen out at Eldora, one of the trophy queens
yes.
out at Eldora Speedway too. So if you get to meet up with her at the end of the night at Eldora, you've probably had a pretty good night.
Well, some reason I don't know why, but ever since she became an Eldora girl, we've had some good success at Eldora. Like obviously, I won the world back in 2016. I was 19 years old, but heck, last year we won at Eldora twice. You know, two big ones. So it's pretty cool to share the stage with her and my friend Devin that races and his sister Savannah. Um, her and Abby are friends now, so that's kind of cool that we get to experience that.
So let's jump back here just a little bit. What I like to do when I bring my guests on the show is talk just a little bit about, and it's pretty obvious for anybody that understands the racing world, but how you got your start in the dirt track world, your first laps you ever competed, and how it was knowing that you had your dad who was a very successful race car driver in your corner also. Where did you get started?
Yeah. So first off, I wouldn't be here without my dad for sure. I don't know what I'd be doing if it would have been racing or what, but um, growing up at the dirt track, you hear everyone always say that. I was at the dirt track from day one when I was born, and my dad raced his whole life from when he was 17 till I think he retired when he was about like 52, and then he dabbled in some modified stuff and things every now and then, but just being at the track, watching him race at such a young age, I try to think back to my earliest memories, and it's tough because when he quit, I was about 6 years old. So my earliest memories, or my memories on it, I remember being in the stands. I don't know if back then it was more rambunctious or what, but I couldn't see a damn thing because I was so short. Well, obviously I was 6 years old, but I'm still short. But just fans going nuts, my mom going nuts. I was always scared for my dad, and I just wanted him to do good and everything. And I always told everyone I was going to play football and not be a race car driver. Um, Lo and behold, I'm not. I mean, I was good at football, but I'm not the size for it. I was more the size for to be a race car driver. And so at 7 years old or 8 years old, my dad put me in a quarter midget again because the first time didn't work, and I loved it. Started racing, every weekend of the summer from then on, really. So started racing super late models when I was 13, pretty young age, and got my first win when I was 14. And with my dad being there every step of the way to help me, that's what's made my career, just go so fast. All the success I've had at such a young age, like if it wasn't for him guiding me through the way and being there really every step of the way, I couldn't have done half of what I've done so far. So
Talk a little bit. You said for the second time in the micro sprint, I think, or whatever it was that you guys were banging around in. The first time you didn't like it. Is that what you're telling me? You're like, let's go back to
yeah,
football, or where was that at?
yeah, quarter midget. So
Okay.
I was I was 4 years old when he bought he bought a quarter midget for me and my sister, and she was 7 at the time. But he didn't know, and he actually, funny story, related to Donnie and Gordy. He bought Gordy's old quarter midget to start. Kind of funny how that works out. But my dad didn't know everything about restrictor plates and stuff, and like the different classes. So the one he bought for me happened to have no restrictor plate in it when I was 4 years old. And these were meant for the kids that were like, 13, 12, a lot older
Kind of
than
like
me.
the restrictors at the shootout in Tulsa.
Yeah.
They're not
So
going anywhere.
mine had no restrictor in it at all. It was wide open. And 4 years old, I mean, all I knew was to hold it wide open. Well, I ran into my dad's truck because we did it in the parking lot out back behind the shop, and I ran into my dad's truck, got scared, but then he also pushed us around the actual quarter-mile dirt track in Danville, Illinois. And he said by the time he pushed me off, when he was pushing my sister off, I had already came around, made a lap, and I was done after that. I parked it, and my mom told me, I don't remember any of this, but my mom told me that I had told her, I was like, hey, my suit is pretty wet. And she's like, what do you mean? And I said, my suit's all wet. Well, basically peed myself because I was so scared. So I was 4 years old. I was 4 years old, and then I didn't mess with it again until I was 8. Kind of build up more courage for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you jump into a super late model at 13 years old. And was there any apprehension from the racetracks or any of the fellow competitors? This day and age, they kind of have some rules in place. How did that work out for you guys when you wanted to go at such a young age?
Uh, Most of the time it wasn't a problem. One time we pulled into, I think it was Highland, Illinois, and that's when I was racing, I think, a crate late model. So I was 12 and 13 years old dabbling with the crate late model stuff. And you had to be 14 to get in the pits. Well, I was like, we'll say 12. And my dad's like, well, he's racing tonight. And they're like, oh, well, hold up. Because let me let me figure out what we got to do here. They let me race, but then places like Eldora, you have to be 16 before you can race there. Um, Eldora is really the only one I had to wait forever to go race at.
Yeah. So you jump into and then you get into super late models. Do you remember actually attending your first ever, like, let's say Lucas Oil or World of Outlaw late model race and how that went for you?
Yeah, I think my first World of Outlaw race was at Lincoln, Illinois, and funny enough, I made it through the B main, like last lap pass for the last transfer spot in the B main. Um, I think I was 13 or 14. It was that first or second year I was racing supers. Um, Pretty crazy. I remember going to Peevely, Missouri. Um, got my butt kicked there. But that's what it took, kind of going out to those, throwing them to the wolves, they say. It helps out a lot.
And that's something that you and Don both have in common. It's nice to have you guys on here to compare that a little bit. But your dad was a racer from the get go, did it his whole life, built race cars on the side, and was a very successful racer. Donnie's dad was a racer and a very successful businessman, also, that enabled you guys to get that opportunity to get started and probably get a swift boot in the ass if you needed it every now and
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
then.
yeah, you'll have that when you're first starting out. And my dad was very tough on me. I mean, even when I started racing crates at like 12, I was just a little kid and he was tough on me, but I think he saw the potential, the talent that I had. And of course, all the money you're putting into it, like you want to go out there and you want your kid to do good. Um, so he just saw the potential in me and on where it could go one day. So he just wanted me to be laser focused in. And um, yeah, your competitors too. I think at first they don't always respect, a little kid coming in, but when you start beating them, then they really don't like it. And it's kind of funny because you look back at it now, a lot of guys that didn't know, one day I'd be a World of Outlaws championship, contender and stuff. Kind of looking back at it now, I guess it was okay to be getting beat by a 14, 15-year-old sometimes because you see what I did nowadays. So it's kind of like, I guess, if Kyle Larson or something, I'm sure he was kicking everyone's butt at a super, super young age. And I mean, look at him now.
Yeah, absolutely. Don, can you relate to any of that? What Bobby's talking about?
You know, if you look back at, obviously I'm not at the late model races all the time, but a lot of father-son combinations. And in the sprint car world, obviously the greatest ever, Steve Kinzer. So you take his son, and how do you be the son of Steve Kinzer and live up to less than 20 World of Outlaw championships and thousands of wins? You know what I mean? It's something that's really hard to do. I got to commend Bobby on, your dad was a hell of a racer, whether it was nationwide or local. I mean, hell, half the country up here in North Dakota thinks Bob Pierce hung the moon. And so to live up to those expectations, but you did. And I mean, obviously you know, staple name in any late model race you show up to in today's environment and the threat to win. So it's hard to do. So I don't know how you did it. Everybody has a little different path, but whatever you've done, it's worked, and you compose yourself the way you do. And so to me, that's pretty neat to see in today's environment because there's no textbook on it. There's no It just happens like this, but you obviously figured it out. So I remember, I don't know your dad all that well. I don't know you all that well, but we watched, and I don't get to watch a lot of races. Obviously, that I'm associated with Gordy now a little bit. I turn it on every now and then, and we watched Falls last year, and you got to the front, and then
That was a good one.
I think you lost the tire, and you went back in, and I was like, we were watching the race, and I'm like, holy shit, he's coming through there, and you got, I mean, it literally gave me goosebumps, and I don't watch races and get goosebumps. I don't even
That's
get in
awesome.
races and get goosebumps. So I remember we were at Charlotte last fall at the World Finals, and I ran into your dad, and I complimented him. I'm like, man, whatever, you've done a great job raising Bobby. It's like that Falls race alone, and he just went, woo! I still get goosebumps over that. So, that's literally why we race. I mean, those feelings you get, the emotions you get, and it's pretty cool to see both a father and son enjoy that alike. So I think that's what everybody really strives for.
Since we're talking about that race, I watched it too, and I had goosebumps too, and I was just sitting in my recliner watching too. So, Bobby, let's talk just a little bit about that race, because obviously you've turned a lot of laps at Falls over in that Illinois area, I believe, haven't you? And talk about
Yeah.
the emotion of that race, to running up front, to all of a sudden you're sitting in the work area and you're coming back out. Are you thinking, I still got a shot at this race?
Yeah, well, first off, Donnie, you picked a heck of a race to watch. That's for sure. That one, it doesn't get any more crazy than that race. Like, that will probably hands down be the most crazy race I'll ever be a part of. It just had so much drama and everything. So I don't know if you know, but first off, the Pear Dirt Classic, my dad won it 5 times. Of course, back then it wasn't as big as what it is now, but it was still a very, very big race in the Midwest. And he won it 5 times, and it's always been a race that's kind of like I've never been able to win it. I've been so close a million times, or just had a car capable of winning it, and I've messed up, or just something stupid has happened. And so yeah, I started in the back, and I was working my way to the front. And I actually spun out. 40 laps to go. I was running. I think I got into fifth, and I hit a lap car and spun out, being a little too aggressive. So uh, when the caution was out, I mean, I was just like, man, this is it. I just ruined my chances. There's always next year, right? Well, I just pulled the belts tighter and got back going through the field. I got up through there pretty quick, and when I got to back around the top 5 area, the cautions came out when I needed them. Like, there was a caution that got me right when I got to third, had a caution, and then right when I got to second, there was a caution. So if there wasn't a caution the last couple laps, Nick Hoffman was going to win it. He was about a straightaway ahead. So the caution with 5 to go, I was like, okay, this is kind of like a basketball game, right? If you're ever watching basketball or football, one team that has the momentum, even if they're behind, it's like, they're going to win because they just have such a momentum. Like, it's going to happen, right? It's going to be this fairy tale ending. And I got that fairy tale ending, how it was a last lap pass, just crazy stuff, right? There was actually a reaction video. My fiance Abby had recorded herself. I wish there was a camera on all my crew guys and my dad, my mom, because I loved reliving those moments of seeing how they're acting when all that's going down. And it was just awesome to finally win it, because that race, like I said, it just, every time I've been so dang close to winning it, something's happened. So
Tell me about the reaction from the crowd when you get out of the car, and you get to probably stand on the roof, jump on the roof. I don't remember the victory lane celebration, but that's got to be
I got
something
a little
that you take.
emotional,
Did you? Yeah, I bet you
and I
did.
normally don't. Yeah,
As in break down a little bit, like that
a
emotional,
little
or
bit.
just
Yeah,
jacked up. But that
yeah,
tells you the magnitude of that race to you. So going back to the fans, because I remember we could hear the fans on TV. It was that crazy.
yeah, yeah. And I could see them on the backstretch, like kind of out of the corner of my eye. As I'm kind of making the pass, it's just, there's just so much stuff going on. You kind of see those things sometimes,
Well,
right?
and that's something I just want to touch on real quick too, since this is a good time to bring it in, since you kind of led that. All the peripheral stuff you see going on in a race car, the same thing for Donnie. The things that you guys can pick out when you're rolling around there. Falls isn't 100 miles an hour, but it's pretty fast, and you got to be elbows up. Um, and I actually got I introduced myself to you just last Friday night over in Grand Forks. You happened to be in my neighborhood, and then,
Hmm.
and you were very cordial. Thank you for that. But during the course of the night, I paid attention to not just you and your guys, but your dad. And standing on the backstretch, your dad is the busiest guy I know when you're on the racetrack, if you know what I'm talking about. And I'm
Yeah. Oh
wondering,
yeah.
how hard is it for you to pick up signals from your dad? Is it easier with sticks versus just gloves? And does it play a lot into the race for you? Or are there times where I'm racing, I got to do what I got to do?
Well, the sticks are a lot easier than gloves. The sticks, heck, we had them about like 3 foot long. It's easier to make them out now with the Outlaws. We can use gloves. I think in Lucas you can still use sticks. Summer Nationals you can still use sticks. At the end of the day, everything's better than allowing radios, so that's good. But it's tough, man. Some places are a lot easier than others. Some places I can't see them at all. And then you get to Eldora now. Actually, Eldora you can't do anything. So there are no signals at Eldora, and it kind of costed me a win on the dream night on the prelim night because I probably should have been driving a little harder. I thought I had a little bit bigger of a lead and I didn't, and I got passed. So, um, but I've lost races because guys move up into my line or something because they got signaled up. So it works both ways. And I've and I've lost races when really flat out Bob just kind of missed it. I stayed in a spot that I should have gotten down or vice versa, but it's always good having my dad there. I mean, he's raced forever, so he knows what's going down out there on the racetrack and how the track's transitioning. He can kind of see that.
So I wanted to ask Don the same thing. And the reason I asked Bobby is because the world I come from, and probably the world Don comes from, there is very, very minimal signaling that I'm aware of, and Don can speak better for that. He knows, he does it night in, night out, and he knows other guys, crew members too, but there's not a lot of that going on in the sprint car world. And Donnie's raced late models also, so I'm wondering if he can compare the two, if he notices other teams doing it in the late model world or the sprint car world and things along those lines. Just trying to compare the two.
I don't think you see a lot of it while the racing's in action with the sprint cars. Obviously under yellow, if somebody's found another groove around the bottom or the top, you obviously you get signals. I guess we're just not used to it. I understand why it's there. It's another tool you use. So if you don't use it, you're kind of a fool to not use all your options. But I guess it always made you wonder to me mentally when you're doing something. I got to find the fastest line or the spot on the racetrack kind of on my own. But it's probably the late. I think the late model racing is probably 3 or 4 times more competitive, and there's 4 times as many competitive cars. So you don't want to cost yourself anything, not one spot, not 1 second. So I see why it's done. I don't, I struggle with it myself just because of the mentality I've grown up doing. You're just so used to having to find them things out on your own. But it's definitely a tool that, I think is out there for everyone to use. And like Bobby said, I think it's like karma. It comes around, it goes around. It'll help you one day and it'll hurt you the next. So, but we've seen a lot of races play out to a different ending, and with guys that are coming from second or third, um, and they move them around because they can. And sometimes I've always said it. I think sometimes if you're leading a race, you're not in the best spot. You're second or third. You can move around, and what's it cost you? You're going for the win. So.
Yeah. And I just wanted to get an idea from two different guys that are very, very good at their selective sport, that are similarly, that are quite a bit alike.
I think sprint cars might be a little more busy down the straightaways too than a late model. I mean, I've never drove a sprint car, but I mean, you guys are obviously going a little faster. Might be
Yeah,
harder to
Yeah.
see.
it makes me wonder, like if like Eldora, you say, I mean, you're going around Eldora at a pretty good clip. I mean, all it takes is a split second for anything to happen. I mean, we've seen people get hit under yellow and not see people. So,
That
yeah,
happened to me
yeah,
recently.
You got hit under yellow?
I think it
Bobby,
wasn't
Did you
long
see
ago I
that?
saw somebody clip the pace truck at a racetrack
Oh,
under yellow swerving. I
yeah.
think it was Overton or something. But so I
No,
mean, it
two
can
weeks
happen.
ago. 2 weeks ago, I was pulling off the track and they were under caution and a car ran into me. I
oh,
was
where
pulling
was
off the
that at?
track at Peevely. Yeah,
Did
I was
it
in.
tear your
I
stuff up?
bent the right rear wheel. To my knowledge, that's it. What we
Yeah.
saw, but it lifted me up pretty good. Yeah, I was in the heat race before that, and caution. I had to scale, so I was stuck down there. And in the next heat race, caution came out. Well, right when caution came out, I pulled on the track, and they're like starting to line up, but they're on the front stretch, so I'm right behind them. If you know Peevely, you pull off turn one, so I'm
Yeah.
pulling off the track, and the car that spun out, he's coming back around on the gas. Well, he locked him up, so he didn't hit me as hard, but yeah,
Yeah, no signal sticks were going to help you there.
no, no signal sticks were helping that.
No.
No, absolutely. So you get going, Bobby, in your career there, and it sounds like you jumped around quite a bit with the World of Outlaws and the Lucas Oil deal. When did you guys come to the conclusion, hey, this is what Bobby Pierce is going to do for a career, and we're going to go all in on this and pick a series or figure out a way to make a living doing this?
um, Man, I don't know. Ever since I started racing, I kind of just knew this was probably the career path I was gonna be doing. A lot of people, because see, my dad builds cars too, or not as much now. But a lot of people would ask me, "Are you gonna build cars like your dad? Are you gonna take over the family business and build modifieds and whatever?" And straight up, no. Like I saw my dad go through all that headache of, just dealing with the customers. And I'm a racer myself. I know we can be hard to deal with. And I saw it firsthand through him for sure. So I wasn't building cars. I don't have that much knowledge on that. But as far as racing cars and racing dirt, I did dabble with some NASCAR truck stuff when I was about 18 years old. And way too much money to get involved in that. And dirt was where it's at. That's what I loved doing, loved watching, and that's just probably what I knew I was going to do. And then I started running the Outlaw Series, and 2023 was my first year. Um, 2018, I ran the Lucas Series, so that was technically my first year running a national series. And then, like I said, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, started running Outlaws, and here we are. So I'm just trying to be like Donny Schatz, get like 25 championships or something.
Well, you've got one, and you're looking good so far this year. We know there's still a lot of racing to be done, but yeah, 2025 has been pretty good to you so far too.
Yeah. What are we at? Like 19 wins or something now. Last year I had
You're at
38. So
Yeah, and I was going through. I think I thought I could be wrong. I thought I saw 18 wins, but let's go with
maybe
19
18.
because
I don't know.
you're gonna know more about me. But I think 4 World of Outlaw wins. Does that sound close? I was just going through my
Yeah.
race pass,
hmm
looking a little bit. So, um, and that tabs you up to a total of 37 World of Outlaw late model wins in your young career. One World of Outlaw championship in 2023. Last year, tough start starting and chasing down the points. We'll just leave it at that. And then you got close there. And this year things have really been clicking off. I wanted to talk this last week. You had the old white car out, the one you had from Eldora, and the last night here when you were, I want to say, well, out in Minot, you guys got the red car out, and you tell me a little bit difference. Tell me the difference between those two cars. If it felt different, if it was just time to cycle it through to get the red car down again, or why the change on the last night.
I think the biggest thing is just like a vibe shift. You just got to change it up sometimes. My dad has always said that blue cars are unlucky, in his opinion. And we did this wrap anyways. I mean, hey, it won the flow night at Eldora. So that was its first race with this scheme. It won the flow race at Eldora, got second at the Dream. Of course, I had to come back from a flat tire. But I got second at the Dream. I won the first Outlaw night at Peevely with it. So it was going good. But the last weekend, the start of the North Dakota Minnesota stretch, just kind of bad luck. Just nothing went our way that first night. We qualified bad because I kind of picked the wrong lane. Sometimes you'll have that.
That was
Choose a
in Grand
top.
Forks, correct?
Yeah,
In
Grand
Grand Forks, yeah,
Forks
yeah.
when the bottom was then showed to be the fastest. So started behind the 8 ball there. Nothing kind of went our way. And then the next night we were running like third or fourth, had a flat tire with 10 laps to go, come back to seventh. And then the following night at Minot, North Dakota, first time ever being there. Awesome place, by the way. Really awesome track. I liked it a lot. We started on the pole. That's with the red car though.
Yes.
Broke out the red car. New track record. Start on the pole. Um, Maybe the bad luck wasn't all the blue car because I ended up losing brakes 10 laps into the race and had no brakes for the last about 38 laps. So one of the sketchiest things I've ever done for sure in a race car. Um, I mean, it took a lot for me not to pull off and, say my nice done because, I mean, heck, anything could have happened. It's very dangerous to do that. I was putting myself and the competitors in danger, but I wasn't giving up them points. We ended up finishing second, almost won it with no brakes. So we'll take it.
And that's ripping right around the top too, with no
Yeah.
wall. So if you hang that thing over the ledge, you're kind of, And I think I've never driven a race car, but I'm assuming brakes are very important getting into the corner on a track like
Yeah.
that.
Well, I'd like to hear Donnie's opinion on brakes, but I know with the late model, um, you go in the corner and well, first off, you got to slow down a little bit, and you kind of help set up the car with the brake pedal. You kind of get the front end to set back down, and that helps you turn. So without the brakes, I was having to like whip the car, kind of give it a left, right, and then whip it into the corner. And I was really hurting my tires and everything and just screwing up my corner entrance. So I said in my interview, I was like, man, I probably would have won by like a straightaway or something if I had brakes. And I really feel like I would have, but I want to hear Donnie's opinion on what driving a sprint car with no brakes is like.
Yeah, it's I believe me, I never knew you didn't have brakes till after the race till you said it. So you obviously did a good job of carrying what you did. I think on one of them restarts, something happened in the one there.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell something had definitely happened, but I couldn't tell till you said something. So
Have you ever had
we're,
a experience with no brakes?
we get it quite often. We don't
Okay.
have we only have a left front brake and a left rear brake really.
Oh,
But
okay.
we don't use a lot. The left front just kind of drags it around a little bit. Sometimes when you're a little bit tight at places like Knoxville or Eldora or maybe even some short track stuff. But I myself have never really used a lot of brake, I guess, just to stay out of trouble or keep from running people over. But some people drive with it. Some people, different guys will put a right rear brake on and it'll pull their car in the right rear but to me, I'm not one that's really ever used a lot of it. I guess maybe I was a little dyslexic and I can't run 2 feet at the same time, only one. So
Donnie's all gas.
no, no, I'm not all gas.
Well, and one thing that is more than obvious in the sprint cars and the late models that I've observed is when the guys are really using the brakes hard on the sprint cars, that inboard brake right underneath the fuel cell, it turns bright orange. You can literally see it. And if you don't know what you're seeing, people get concerned about it, but that's just part of the process of racing a sprint car with the brakes. Going back to your 2023 World of Outlaw Point Championship season, Bobby, you guys set off to win the points. Was that the first year you ever decided you were going to run the late model deal? And was that the main goal at the end of the year when you guys left the house for the first time?
Yeah. So in 2023, when it was the first year I switched to Longhorn chassis as well. So lots of new stuff for me that year. At the end of 2022, which I was still running the Pierce car stuff, I had a heck of like the last third of the season of 2022. I won like over half of my races, and that was with the Pierce car. So I was like, man, maybe we shouldn't be switching to Longhorn stuff now. But you see guys have so much success with that, and we did it, and it was a great switch. So forward to 2023, we went out to Vado, New Mexico to start the year, and that wasn't a points race yet for Outlaws because Outlaws started in Florida. So Vado was our test, and the first night I was beating Jonathan Davenport. He ends up passing me. I end up spinning out actually, but that was the first night on the Longhorn. So I was like, okay, let's take it to Florida. Let's take it to the Outlaw races. So I kind of made my decision then. We'd already left the house, went to New Mexico, and then I kind of made my decision there on if I'm going to run the Outlaws that year or not. And I actually think Brandon Shepard asked me in Vado, and he asked me, he said, you're not running the Outlaws this year, are you? And I think I told him no. Well, my mind kind of got switched to then do it after that. And we headed to Volusia and ran all of Volusia in January, ran all of Volusia in February. Um, and it was tough in January because I broke a couple motors. So I wasn't sure if I was going to come back in February, but I did. And I won the first points race back. And then on, the rest of the year was pretty good. I ended up taking the point lead in June or something and winning my first national title. It was awesome.
Talk about that change from the Pierce car to the Longhorn car, and I know enough about late models just to be dangerous and make myself look foolish sometimes. But you guys switched over from your own car, and was the reason for that lack of time for your dad to be able to keep up with that stuff with you out guys having with you out having a very aggressive racing schedule, or was there different reasoning? And if you don't want to share it, I more than understand that too.
No, just the last few years, everyone's seen like the dominance of Jonathan Davenport, and Tim McCready was doing really good in the Longhorns. Lots of guys, it seemed like anyone that got him was pretty fast, and it was kind of good timing with that. And my dad was wanting to slow down. He's 73 years old now. He was 45 when I was born, so he says he started late. As far as having kids. And so he wanted to just slow down with the late model side of building chassis. He still wanted to do his modifieds because that's kind of what made Bob Pierce race cars was the modifieds. Like there was a time around 2007, 2008, if you didn't have a Pierce modified in the Midwest, you were not going to be fast. So there was a time it was really, really good for my parents with that. But yeah, man, he just wanted to slow down, kind of put all of his focus into my racing and not, everyone else. So just kind of that.
Absolutely. And I just was going to ask Don, because I saw him nodding his head over there, 2007, 2008. Don said something similar to guys around here hanging the moon or something like that with your dad stuff. And Don, maybe just touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I just know a lot of guys around here, just always lived and died by Bob Pierce race cars. You know what I mean? If you wanted to win, Bob's right. You had to have it up here, and I think it goes in cycles. Just like the whole Longhorn thing, someone gets beat down for a while, and it depends. They put their head down and they go to work and they get something that's better, and it's how long do they stay working? And obviously, that's what today's environment is, and it'll make everybody else go do the same thing, but it goes in waves. But hell, where I'm from, there's been a ton of Pierce race cars up here in those days, and I think there's still quite a few still around. But and I know a few people that are that live and die by it.
So something else I want to touch on with you, Bobby. When it comes to racing the late model, what is an ideal number of laps for you guys in an A main? And does the size of the track make a difference to you guys? Because you guys run quite a few 50 lappers and 100 lappers versus the sprint cars.
Man, I'd love to see the sprint cars race more laps like the really big money shows. I like the 100 lappers. I think it gives you a lot of time to, if you start in the back, the best cars, the cream's going to rise to the top, as they say. And I like the 100 lappers as long as it's paying the money for it. Now, I know there's like a 100 lap race for 5K to win. That's not any good. But yeah, I know the sprint car situation with their fuel tanks and everything, and they burn fuel so much faster than we do. But yeah, I'd love to see a 100 lap sprint car race.
It's funny you say that. Look, 25 years ago, you guys had the same problem we have. You ran alcohol in the motors, and you couldn't do the 100 lap races without having a fuel stop. You guys switched to gas, more efficient. You can run 100 lap races without running out. You could never do that on alcohol, and it's an inherent problem in the racing world. I guess today there's a lot of hubbub over Port Royal last night, over some things that happened. One guy ran out of fuel, and one guy ran out of fuel leading, and one got to put fuel in, and they threw a red. So them sort of things suck. But when you get on a big place like Port Royal, as you've been, they take, a gallon or even more than a gallon a lap. But we
It's
can't put
crazy.
bigger tanks on these cars because if you crash in the first couple laps with 33 gallons on, the tank's coming off the car, and it's
Hmm.
not because they're not on there, but you hit something hard enough, them things are going to come off. So I I I commend the late model world for doing that, like going to gas. It's something that's maybe a far-fetched idea for us. I think we could run more longer races, but everybody, has that, oh man, it's gas, it's explosive, the flash point's higher, but I don't know how often you run into where you feel like you're unsafe because you got 30 gallons of gas on versus 50 gallons of alcohol, but it's a real world problem.
And that's something I was going to ask, Bobby. Do you guys switch back and forth, or are you pretty much gas only versus the methanol?
Nope, we're all gas all the time. We just run like I run VP late model plus. Yeah, we'll fill up our like even for some 50 lappers. There's a lot of teams that fill it up all the way just because you kind of want the tail weight for the last 20 laps, 10 laps of the race. Um, but yeah, I have ran out of fuel a couple times before. One time I ran out of fuel at Knoxville as I crossed the checkered, and there was a couple other teams that ran out of fuel, so it gave me some positions. And then I ran out of fuel. It was at Eldora 2 or 3 years ago, and I had to put a bigger tank in for the next time. So every time I go to Eldora, I make sure I put the bigger tank in that holds like 2 more gallons. Because if you're racing 100 laps on the gas, we can burn through all of our fuel. It just depends on the racetrack condition. But Donnie, what do you think if you had a 100 lap race and you maybe had like 2 fuel stops throughout the race or something? Would that be
Well,
not cool?
we do have a 50 lap race. The Nationals is now 50 laps, and they basically do it where they stop at halfway, but you get to put new tires on. That's something
Mm-hmm.
that in your former race, and the tires is a huge thing. I didn't realize how big it was till, being at Nodak on Sunday, and everybody's, the guys next to me are like, oh, you got to put a four on. You got to have a four. I'm like, what's a four? I don't even have one in the trailer. And so you got selection and compounds, and you got twos and threes and fours. We just got one tire, and everybody runs the same thing. So if we had to run 50 laps and conserve fuel and not abuse the tires, yeah, you could come from the tail. You could probably race from the B main and still win a race, but it isn't going to happen when you stop at halfway and let everybody put new tires on, because you can just go flog the tires for 20 laps and they'll make it, but
Right.
they won't for 50. So there's a lot of variables in there, but it quite caught me off guard to, the other night at Nodak, exactly about halfway through the race. There was a kid leading. I didn't know who he was, and you were chasing him. And I was like, man, this is what's going on here. This kid's actually doing a good job leading this race. And I don't know if he's
Mm-hmm.
led a race before or not, but I'm like, is the racetrack that fast? But then that dynamic, that last 15 laps of that race, it changed,
Big change, yeah.
and it changed big time. And the groove changed in one and two. And then I'm sitting there watching, and all of a sudden, with like 10 to go, you guys are like four wide coming out of four. And there's a white car leading, and I'm like, who in the hell is that? And it was like, that's McCready. I'm like, he
Yeah,
started 12th. So the dynamic changes at the end of those races when you get to the 40 to 50 lap mark, because you've wore the track out, the tires are a factor. There's yellows, whether the tires fire or they don't. So it just seems like there's a little bit more adjustability and maneuverability in how the race plays out versus some of our stuff. We were at Cedar Lake both nights last weekend, and it's 30 laps, 30 lap features, and you can almost run. It wasn't flat out, but it didn't really slow down to the last 5 or 6 laps of the race. So
you bring
it's
up a
just,
good point. Sometimes it needs those 50 lappers for the track to really come in sometimes and give the fans a good show.
The other thing
I
I
I
didn't
agree
wanted
didn't
with
know
you.
you were at Nodak. I didn't know you were at Nodak. That's cool.
Yeah, I came
Helping
there
your
Sunday. Well,
nieces.
yeah, yeah. Well, I was there. I grew up there, so
Okay.
that's my hometown. That's where I'm from, and
Hmm.
those guys actually called me when they wanted to have a race, and I had to vouch for the facility and whatever And I know it's a long ways off the beaten path, but I think you saw by the community there. There was 4,000 plus people in the
Yeah.
grandstand, and I you
Tons
know
of
I
people.
think they I think they and they're really active race fans too. I mean, if you had
Hmm.
your t-shirt trailer there were people down all afternoon, everybody seemed like they had a good time, but it is a long ways up there. It's a little bit off the beaten path for what everything else was going on. So hopefully they can work with some other tracks next year and maybe get you guys up there again. And
Get us
I
back.
know it was a pretty good race, even though I know you'd rather won it as
I want
and
redemption, so we
anybody
need to go
competitive
back.
would. Yeah, exactly.
Bobby's voting for a return trip next year.
And then let's go to Montana. We're already 16 hours away from home. Might as well keep
Oh,
going.
Montana's a long ways from there. Yeah, you don't want to go that far.
So jumping back, talking about the dynamic of the race, and I think what might have been missed is the fact that I think what Donnie's pointing out is you guys have options for the hardness of the tires to an extent that you're going to run. Not everybody is guaranteed to be on the same tire when you guys roll out for the A main. And I think that's one of the dynamics that Don was touching on. And correct me if I'm wrong, Don, but to me, that is a huge part of the game where everybody doesn't even have to worry about tires in the sprint car world. They know what they're going to put on.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I first started racing with the World of Outlaws, there was no single manufacturer. It was American Racer or McCreary back then, and there was Goodyear. And Hoosier was the latest player to the game. They were the ones that didn't come to the game till last, and obviously, they're the only player here now. And is that something that needs to happen? I don't know, but I think you got to have a little bit of tunability. I remember back in the days, we'd go to some sandy surfaces like Texas Motor Speedway and Devil's Bowl where you didn't get qualified unless you had, which was like this 10. It was a 10 compound. It was the softest thing on the planet. Well, you'd qualify good, but in the heat race, you had about 3 laps, and then the harder tires would start driving by you, and you could never run one in the feature. But, if you didn't get qualified, it didn't matter anyway. So there was a little bit of a dynamic to that. And to me, I know they still get criticized. I've heard guys say these tires are junk or they're this or that. Everybody's going to have a different opinion no matter what it is. But to see it play out in real time on Sunday night, where guys were running 4s and some guys had 3s. I don't even know what you had on. You don't have to tell, but maybe there was guys that had 2s on. I don't know. But
Most people
I did.
were hard. Most of them were as hard as you could go.
Yeah, and I think, and I didn't realize it after looking at our right rears after hot laps. They were tore apart, but they
Yeah, and
were
that's
really,
our medium compound.
yeah, and they were pretty, but ours were pretty siped up, and maybe
Mm,
without those sipes, it wouldn't have tore them up, but
yep.
it wrecked tires. But I think it got easier on them as the night went on. So,
The
but if
crazy thing
you
is,
use it to win a race, or if it gets you the job and the tire's done, well, you got your money out of it and move on.
yeah, the crazy
One
thing is sometimes we go to places and you can stay soft all night and it doesn't even hurt them. That's great. Different dirt, different tracks, but
Yeah, maybe it's that good old black North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota dirt that had the old white 32 confused too, Bobby.
yeah, probably, probably. I'm still learning the North Dakota black dirt.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to point out also that I think it was on Saturday night, you guys were over in Ada, I think. And is that the night you had a flat tire in the
Yeah,
feature?
at Ada Saturday night, they were just in the right rear, and I was screaming in the car. I was yelling. Of course, I'm mad. I have this flat tire on a points night.
I saw Don kind of snicker a little bit and then roll back. He said, while you were in the work area, you were yelling. And, if a driver's in the work area, are they ever usually very happy? Don?
No, no, but you get used to it after a while if you're in there enough. But thankfully for me, I'm not in there very often.
I mean, I was yelling so much I had to like stop because I had to catch my breath. I was going to pass out from yelling so
Get,
much.
And actually,
yeah,
it's good to hear because I get told I yell a lot, and I'm the only one that ever does that. So at least now I got somebody in my corner.
Oh no, I'm yeah, I get pretty
Yeah, it's if you're I don't think you're competitive enough if you're not always digging for
exactly,
something.
exactly.
One other thing I talked to Bobby about on Friday night last week in Grand Forks, I said I'm going to want to bring it up on the show is the weight of the cars. And since I've become really, really locked in on the late models the last 3 or 4 years, it was something that I about tipped over the first time I realized what they were saying. But when we go to a World of Outlaw sprint car race or high limit or any other race, even around here, local scenes, is our weight rule for the whole night. And in the bigger late model like Lucas Oil and World of Outlaw, they allow a burn-off rule. And so if you're going to qualify, what's your guys' weight, Bobby, your normal weight? Do you know?
2350 is our rule, so we're about 2400.
Yeah, and you said you don't have a worry about weight even at the end of the night without the burn off, if I remember correctly. But if you weigh 2350 and you guys run a 100 lap race, all of a sudden you're at 2250. And my question is, what do these cars weigh with you guys in them, with no fuel and say no water in the radiator and burned off tires? You ever checked?
Let's see, 6 pounds a gallon, right? So we have 26, 20. I mean, we're probably with zero, let's see, with 0 gallons of fuel. I mean, I think I'm still gonna be over 2250. But there's other people out there that like to push the limit, and I don't really know how they get their cars that light, honestly.
Yes. So then my question, and where I was trying the rationale was coming, is when you guys qualify and you're on your heat races, do you have bolt on weight? Do you guys have because you got to obviously weigh the 2350 when you roll by for those two events.
Mhm. Um, you don't really see a lot of bolt-on weight nowadays, like at least with Longhorn. If you do want to play around with, like percentages, you can say move your fire bottle uh, from the center to the rear, or the
Yep.
placement of your batteries. You kind of use those things. Maybe you want to position your oil tank or your oil cooler in a different spot, or your oil tank. Every now and then you'll see some guys maybe put some lead up on the left front, try to keep that left front down.
Do you guys knowingly know you have to have so much fuel in the car to get by for qualifying or heat races?
Um, yeah, but it's not something I have to worry about because we're like the same everywhere we go. We'll
Yeah.
start like say like 15 gallons, or whether we're 18
Yeah.
gallons or 14, or I mean around that area, we're still good. Especially you get a little bit of mud on the car.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the time, anyways, you got some mud on the car that weighs. I mean, sprint cars don't have to worry about that, But with late models, like we got mud up under the deck. It's on the frame rails everywhere. Just that adds up.
That's what I was wondering. Don, what are your thoughts on the weight limit with a burn off rule? Would To me that would hurt the sprint car world. We're already too late.
Well, man, I mean, I'm not a little guy. I'm over 200 pounds. I have been forever. Hell, I used to be 250, and I was probably better off when I was 250. It wasn't such a big thing, but you have to. I think it's still too light. I mean, you know what we're spending on stuff land for the carbon fiber bodies on these cars is $6,500, and titanium drive lines. Everything's titanium and carbon fiber, and so you could save a lot of expenses, a lot of money doing that. But you got to take a look at another guy that's barely 120 pounds soaking wet. It's not really fair to that guy to say, hey, you got to go bolt 100 pounds of lead on your car. But there's got to be some sort of a happy medium, somewhere in between. And because some of the expenses do get like literally out of control. I had to chuckle yesterday. I saw something on Facebook. ASCS has a new wing rule, and I'm like, oh man, here we go. We're going to change the wings from flat to dished again, or something like that. Not even close. They made a one wing a night rule. And I'm like, one top wing a night. Wow, that'd be great. I'd probably win a championship by default if that was the
Yeah,
case. You know what I mean? Like, because we try to keep our nose clean and out of trouble, but that's so we're gonna see how that plays out. But
that's
um,
crazy.
Well,
yeah,
and
I wish the weight was a little bit different. But it's honestly, if a majority of the people have to go bolting lead on, it's dangerous because the last thing anybody needs is some of that stuff. And things fall off the cars now, calipers or
Right.
things break off and you get hit with them.
What
It's
what
not
do
good.
this what do the sprint cars have to weigh?
What is it, 1425 land?
it's 1425
And I'm over
with driver.
1500. So I'm like, I can be out of fuel and out of water and four flat tires or bald tires from the rubber and not even be close.
Yeah,
But
and
and
see
but,
that.
but my cars aren't, my cars have never been light. We've never gone down the muffler tubing with the frames or none of that stuff to make it flex and do that. And there's a lot of that out there, but you could probably knock 30 off a car by just doing all the bracing lightweight and this and that, and they might work better, but something happens, you got to live with the results.
I feel like in the sprint car world, you can kind of push the limits more because all the parts are so light. Like with the late model, say you're trying to get it down to that last pound, you're probably going to break something because the late model is just so heavy and there's so much more just, it's a heavier car than a sprint car. If you go trying to light up say the J bar, for example, you're probably going to break it. And
Oh,
do you,
absolutely. Then like just take some of these races the way you got to meet up with the cushion, and
mhm.
it's a heavy car and you meet up with it and it's under load. I mean, I don't know how some of the stuff doesn't break more often than it does the way, you're able to get them around there because you definitely use them and abuse them, and they're heavy. I mean, hell, if it
Yeah.
was me, I'd be replacing some of that stuff every night, but you guys obviously do it as good as anybody.
Bobby, do you guys run any titanium or like carbon fiber stuff on the late models?
No, so I meant to talk about that too. So we can't run any titanium parts at all. Where sprint cars, it's open book to run all that stuff. So and I like that we can't run it because that would get extra costly, and really I think our weight rule is a good rule because it actually used to be 2300. A few years ago they made it 2350 in order to prevent costs from rising so much. People trying to get the weight down. So.
Can you guys machine bolts and stuff? Do you guys see that anymore? Or are they pretty much just going with you know what I'm saying? Sometimes it
I
gets almost stupid. And I'm not,
Yeah,
even if you
it,
guys are doing it,
it's
sorry.
it's out there. No, it is out there. I don't. I know. Let's take like Scott Bloomquist for example. I've heard lots of stories. And from my dad, my dad and Scott were friends, and he told me some stories how Scott would be a guy that he'd take every single fine detail of that race car. It could be a bolt of anything, and it probably was. Yeah. He
Yeah,
was the guy that was light at the scales at Eldora
Yeah.
that
that's
one
true.
year.
That's true. So, last thing I want to kind of compare things about is the way the late model guys head to the racetrack and get to the racetrack and stay at the racetrack. And a lot of people have asked, why don't you see these guys with their stuff all lettered up with their big sponsors down the side? And it's kind of a different world for the late model guys. You guys get to the racetrack and you set up camp and you guys stay in your motorhomes, technically I'm going to say with the way they're licensed. If correct me if I'm wrong here, but if you guys were to have the big sponsorship down the side, then you got to go commercial.
Yeah. So we're registered RV, not for hire. Lots of gray areas with us. We're 90 feet long, basically. And yeah, so we don't get to go to the hotels every night. However, I will say I love the couple times I get to get away from the racetrack. If I ever do get the chance to go to the hotel, like some weekends at Eldora. Now I get to go to the hotel, or if we get an Airbnb, like when I go to Charlotte, I'll get an Airbnb. When I go to Vado for the Wildwood Shootout, I'll get an Airbnb. That's really nice just to escape, get away from the racetrack. So I'm kind of jealous with the sprint car side of things that way, but I know it would get costly. All the hotels. That's however many people you have with you, that could get pretty costly. But we travel in our toters and live in them and spend a lot of time in here. So I wish I could spin this laptop around and show you guys everything. But like I have a back bedroom in mine. I would not do without that. I would
That's
say I
your
would recommend
spot
that
right
everyone.
then.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So, how many crew members do most late model teams have? Let's start with your team versus what the norm is, and maybe you have what the norm is.
So I have a tire guy, uh, maintenance guy, and then I have another kid that he kind of just helps out here and there, whatever helps me with some body, helps mount some tires. I have my dad that helps do the setups. So really, 1, 2, 3, 4 guys, and then me, and then which actually my mom and dad drive the merchandise trailer to all the racetracks, so they handle that. My mom sells the shirts. Sometimes Abby helps out. Sometimes some other people help out. But right now, I've got really 4 full-time guys if you count my dad, because he basically is. So.
Yeah, and the merchandise trailer is probably an important part of what you guys do these days too. But that's kind of helped you guys get up and down the road also.
Oh yeah, for sure. Just talking about Nodak the other night, like we sold a lot of merch up there. That helps out a ton. Obviously, it's not compared to like Eldora or some really huge event like that. But if it wasn't for obviously sponsorships and merchandise, like I own my own team. This is all me. I own it all. So like I win races, and sometimes I look and I'm like, man, I don't know how these teams that like if they never win a race, I don't know how they keep doing it. So like merch helps, and it all goes hand in hand too, right? Like if you're winning races, probably going to sell more merch. So um, without all the fan support and stuff, it'd be hard to make it all work, you know.
Do most of the drivers travel with the motorhomes in the big late model stuff, or do some guys shoot it on their own?
I say most guys do. I know like JD, he flies everywhere. He goes home every week. I'd say most guys are kind of hands on with the team. They'll travel with the toter and then help, throughout the week in the shop and stuff. But um, there's a few like someday probably I aspire to be like JD where I just
Or like Don.
or like Don. Yep.
Don tends to get
Yeah.
home every now and then too. So yeah. So last thing, Bobby, just a fun one here. And you're gonna be like, now why did you have to bring that up? But August 2005 Cedar Lake Speedway. You and Turbo have a little difference of
Oh,
opinions.
2015 was that?
No,
Or
it
when
was
was it?
2020 is what it says
Or
here on my
yeah,
notebook.
20
August of
2020.
2020. And I don't know if it's the USA Nationals or whatever race that is up there, but and we don't have to. We're not going to dissect that one, but it was just it's a well-known deal. Do you have a lot of drivers out there that is there a clique of guys out there? Do you get along with everybody? It seems like, are there guys that have certain beefs with each other? And does it matter if you go from Lucas to World of Outlaws?
Um, I think it's like anything really. If everyone wasn't such fierce competitors on the racetrack, um, heck, we'd all probably be best friends, you know? I mean, we see everyone just about every weekend, but on the racetrack, I don't really consider having a lot of friends. Because yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all, like I said, we're fierce competitors against one another. Um, you know, I've obviously known a lot of them for many years. Like me and Devin Moran, for example, been friends for a lot of years. Gordy, um, and there's probably not one out there that I've had at least a little running with on the racetrack. I mean, when you race as much as we do, 90 sometimes a year, you're going to have those things happen. Um, the funny thing is, it's like, for example, like me and Ricky Thornton, we were yelling at each other one weekend, one night. Next weekend, we're shaking hands in victory lane and smiling at each other and laughing about things. And I mean, that's just the way it goes. As long as you can kind of let things go. I forget who said it one time, a racer. I think a late model guy. He said, it, you know, if you get scuffled up in one corner, you better forget it by the time you go down the straightaway and go to the next corner, because if you have that mentality, it's going to help you a lot more in the long run. And I'm still kind of learning that sometimes.
I just want to ask, since it's 5 years later, how do you and Turbo get along these days? Are you guys okay, or do you just kind of bide your own time?
It is what it is.
Okay, we'll go with that. Yep. All right. Hey, guys, it's been about an hour. I can't believe it's already been that long. I know, Bobby, you got a race coming up tonight at Deer Creek, and Don's got some stuff he's got to tend to himself here later on. Thank you both for squeezing me into your schedule. It was really fun having you both on and hearing the perspectives of both sides of the Major League Dirt Track stuff that we have going on out there. So, Bobby, thanks for coming on. Good luck tonight.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
And Don, I'll let you get on your way. I know you got some stuff you got to do, but hey, maybe we'll see each other at the racetrack sometime, and we can have that big old fat group hug or something.
Yeah. Or if anything, at the banquet, I'll be seeing Don there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll be much earlier in the night than you. I'm pretty sure of that.
All right. So, Bobby, I want to thank your and also your technical side, Abby, for getting you hooked up, flawless, and Don. Like I said, thanks for you guys. Let's get on out of here.
All right.
All right. See you, everybody. Okay, so everybody, thanks for listening in. That's just some great stuff that those guys had to offer, and really cool. You'd be hard to believe that those guys really don't know each other real well. I thought they did a great job comparing stuff together too. So great job by both those guys. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Like I said in the beginning of the show, yes, obviously different background for me. I'm doing the closer now, also back from my studio. We shot that the show Thursday of the Deer Creek show over there, where Bobby and the Red 32 got the win. So I want to say, hey, a little karma, good luck karma for doing the podcast with Lan on Thursday afternoon and then getting the win Thursday night. Obviously, he didn't talk to me Friday because, unfortunately, he got collected in somebody else's mess on Friday night, and the 32 got upside down, was a DNF, a lot of carnage in that race that night. And then they got rained out the following Saturday night, the big 50 lapper there for the Go for 50. But pretty good weekend for Bobby to start anyway. Didn't end the way he wanted it to, but it would have been interesting to see what he had on Saturday night to come back to finish up that race. Once again, want to thank all of you guys for tuning in and listening. I hope you enjoyed my first late model guest on here. I thought he did a great job, and I'm looking forward to getting to know a few more of those guys. I do know a few of them, so I think we'll be able to get some more personalities as we move forward, too. If you're a late model listener tuning in for the first time, I appreciate you. I appreciate all race fans. I love the super late model racing, and I love the sprint car world, too. If you liked what we did here, please share, please like, please subscribe. Tell your friends about the show. I love getting this information out to you guys, and I'm having a blast to do it. We'll see you down the road soon. Thanks for tuning in.